This is the October 9th meeting of the Milton Board of Appeals, and we're here tonight to consider the continued hearing of John and Carly Cherry, dated May 3rd, 2019, with respect to the property at 470 Elliott Street in Milton. This hearing is seeking a variance under Section 6D2 of the Milton zoning bylaw and a special permit under Section 3A9 of the Milton zoning bylaw. Excuse me. The hearing commenced on June 20th. It was then continued to July 16th, and then continued again to August 13th, and most recently to September 23rd, and now we are here on October 9th to continue the hearing. My name is Ted Daber. I am acting chairman for this case. To my left is Therese Quijano, board member, and to my right is Nicholas Gray, board member. My memory is that the last time we met and took evidence, the parties were going to go back and maybe regroup a little bit, have some possible discussions about revising the plans, and come back here and present some more evidence and possibly some revised plans. And that's one of the reasons that the hearing was continued in July. So I get there are no new documents that have been filed. Is that right? Not since
August 12th.
August 12th.
I believe it was August 12th. I think we sent these. I had forwarded them all via email.
And I have a second copy, but we did revise the drawing for the neighbors' concerns.
Okay. So let me make sure I'm looking at the right set of drawings here. 8/9/19, ZBA revisions for Milton hearing 8. It says 8/9/19, but okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Please come up and introduce yourselves, please, and commence with the presentation.
Heidi Condon of HC Design. I'm here representing Carly and John Cherry. Carly's here this evening, so it was my firm that made the revisions and the proposal. So really, just to give a little bit more history, we're really looking at requesting relief that really is in line with the Milton Housing Production Plan. I mean, here is a very young family living here in Milton with two young children, 2 working parents, and they needed some help. And so the reason why we are here, we are requesting relief so her parents can live on the property intermittently and care for their grandchildren. So really, when I'm reading the housing production plan, the community must continue to strategically plan for more affordable and accessible housing in response to the local needs of current demographic and economic conditions. Also, to develop a number of project alternatives in recognition of a range of housing needs in town, including housing for seniors, families, and those with special needs. We're also to meet local housing needs along the full range of incomes, promoting social and economic diversity and the stability of individuals and families living here in Milton, and to provide housing alternatives to elderly residents as a goal in meeting these families' needs. And this is on a very small scale, 1 family, but we are seeking relief so 3 generations can live on 1 property and really care for each other. It's a very old-fashioned position, but I really do believe that's what the housing production plan is really about on this local level. And so what we are requesting is this now studio apartment, which is in an existing heated living space over the garage. In response to our last two hearings and concerns of the neighbor, we have reduced the windows that overlook his property. There currently are skylights there, so you can look between the two properties. I've reduced those windows so they're smaller. It's no longer in a bedroom per se. It's now a studio apartment. It's already heated living space. It can be used like this, but we are requesting a bathroom and kind of a kitchenette. We've also removed this exterior secondary spiral open staircase. We're going to maintain the existing interior staircase, so that will be the primary access to the space as it is now. We have designed an enclosed staircase that is facing the neighbor's property and will provide privacy. So now the deck is pushed further into the property and it will not really be visible from the neighbors. And we've also removed the exterior stair to this deck that was just open. So our goal was to address the neighbor's concerns of maintaining his privacy, but still providing two means of egress for his parents and anyone else who's using this space. But the space does exist, so we're really requesting relief in relationship to the housing production, format that Milton is striving to provide their neighborhoods and their families. So we do feel like we've made many concessions to provide everyone a comfort level, but still provide a kind of in-suite space for Carly's parents to come when they're caring for her children. And down the road, Carly can care for them. And that's, to me, that's an old-fashioned 3 generations on one property, and that's really a goal of the housing production and many of our families with the rising housing and taxes and having 2 parents work. That's the norm now. And I think it's really important that we all accept it and address it and try to create these living situations where we can care for each other in one family.
Okay. Is that, would you like to say anything?
Yes,
Or is there anything else to the presentation while you're
I
at it?
agree with what Heidi is saying, of course. It's really important to us to have my parents close. They don't live anywhere near us, not in the state at all. And when they come to visit, and it's for longer than 2 days, it's very uncomfortable for them. And we just want to make them feel welcome in our house always. And of course, would be better for them to have a real bed and a space to live if they could come and watch the kids for a week or something like that, just to help us out when we need it, especially and because they want to around holidays and things like that. So I just think it would be a wonderful thing for our family in general. And again, as Heidi said, the space is there, and it would be great just to make it more useful for them and, well, anyone really.
Okay. Mr. Gray, do you have any questions of the applicants?
So you're still asking for this 2 things, correct? A variance from the Section 62's rear lot line
Yes.
thing, which requires 30 feet, and you only have 6.5 feet.
Yes.
Okay,
Of an existing building.
that's a fairly substantial change. And secondly, you're asking for us to approve a special permit for an in-law apartment, which has extremely specific requirements outlined in the bylaw that we have to follow.
Yes.
Okay. And thirdly, you're asking for us to make an exception to one of those requirements in that section of the bylaw for the special permit, which allows, because as written, I think it's paragraph F, part F, whatever it is, requires that special in-law apartment, the in-law apartment be within the existing dwelling.
Yes.
Okay. This is not within the existing dwelling. So in order to grant the special permit, we have to we have to make an exception.
Yes.
For that, okay. So to my thinking, while the housing production plan for the town of Milton is interesting and perhaps important for the town, definitely important for the town, within what this board is able to do, this is the Zoning Board of Appeals, so we're acting within a limited scope of authority. So when we grant a special permit, right, for the in-law apartment, which town meeting wrote extremely detailed for a reason, because they disfavored or for whatever reason, but we have a bylaw.
Yes.
To my thinking, the housing production plan is not particularly relevant to whether or not we've got authority to vary those requirements. So can you speak to that at all to help us come up with some rationale that we could put in a decision to justify why we should grant the fact that this special in-law apartment, which is not being used continuously, but only part-time, yeah, is not within the existing dwelling? Because we need, it would be very helpful, I think, to the case that we have some basis to make that decision.
We are using an existing building that is on the property. We are not overdeveloping the property. We could attach it to the existing house. When I spoke with the building inspectors, he didn't really think that was feasible or really addressed, item F, making it part of the existing dwelling. So yes, we are asking for an exception. It's an existing heated living space, and we would just like to use it in this format. It seems excessive if we knocked it down, attached it to the home, and built a completely new structure when we have heated living space over the garage now. So it just seems excessive if that were the only way to make this work, by literally knocking down a perfectly fine structure that is not that old, merely to attach it to an existing home.
Okay. I don't have any other questions at the moment.
Ms. Quijano, any questions?
I did have a question. I just got so caught with yours. Okay, I think I'm good for now.
Okay. Yeah, I have a few, some of which arise from the fact that it's been a while since we've been here, and I may need a refresher on some of this. But I had the same question as to whether or not the housing production plan, and I didn't see anything in it, goes so far as to say that boards should grant variances and special permits in order to provide the housing that's talked about in there, and I'm not sure that that was intended either. I hear what you're saying, but as Mr. Gray pointed out, it is a very strict standard and under the special permit provisions. So, okay, but be that as it may, you said that I don't. Let me look here. Could you just refresh me a little bit on the difference in size and shape and nature of the windows that you're proposing now under the revised plans as opposed to?
So the original plans had double hung windows that met egress code. So the minimum, when you have a bedroom in the state of Massachusetts, the windows need to be accessible in an emergency.
Yep.
And so that is required. It's typically a 4 foot 2 inch height and a 2-foot 2-inch width. So that's basically an awning or a casement window or a double hung, which is what I originally had. I've cut that in half and made them, if you look at the rear elevation, they are now awning windows, so they're much smaller. And I eliminated the wall that created the bedroom. So now it's just one open space, more like a studio apartment. So my egress window requirements are met by the windows that face the driveway and that are within the setbacks. And so I reduced them, it's merely for ventilation and air. They are not egress windows. And they are smaller than the skylights that are currently facing the rear of the property.
And smaller than the double-hung ones that...
Half the size of what we originally provided.
Okay. And what is their height above the floor?
So they are 4 foot 3 inches above the floor, the sill.
Okay. And so the stairway, I mean, originally, you're keeping the indoor stairway.
Yes, we're keeping the interior stair.
And there was a stairway on the outside that, as you faced the structure from the street, from Elliott Street, was going to be on the right side. Are you saying now it would be in the rear?
It's still on the side. If you look at the revised drawings, it's an enclosed structure.
Okay.
So the exposed exterior stairs have been eliminated. It's in an enclosed structure, so it looks part of the building, which is a requirement of the building inspector. And it also provides privacy to the neighbors, so it's just structure. There aren't people walking up and down near the property line. They're inside a structure where the stairs are.
Okay. For some reason, I thought you had said that it was on the side facing the neighbor's property, so that's why I must have misheard.
Sorry, the original spiral staircase was on the left side.
Oh, okay.
And we've eliminated that. That was an open stair.
Okay. And there's still, is the deck enclosed or not?
No, it's just an open deck, but it's beyond the setbacks. And it's kind of protected. It provides privacy for both the neighbor and anyone on that deck. And that's the second means of egress.
Okay. And is there still... Was there a breezeway there that was taken out then when you
I had
redid it,
originally
or
discussed it with the building inspector, and he said since it wasn't heated, it wasn't part of the original property.
Okay.
So the only way to comply with F would be to knock this down and build an attached garage to the existing home.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So are there any persons here at the hearing with questions about the project?
Just a couple.
Would you like to come up, sir?
Paul Sterling, 36 Henry Road. I am the abutter to the proposed structure. Not a whole lot has changed since last time. I guess I have two questions more for you folks. I'm sorry about that. So I took this pretty seriously. Like I said last time I was here, the last thing I want to say to my neighbor is no, stand in their way of doing something that could improve their lives. So I spoke to some real estate agents and some other people around town that are familiar with what this could do to my property value. Everyone said that it could only have a negative impact. Are you folks aware of this potentially having a positive impact or no impact at all versus a negative impact?
Well, we're not real estate appraisers, Mr. Storello.
I got you.
We're here to, to decide whether or not it's, I mean, one of the standards for a special permit is whether it can be detrimental to the neighborhood. That's one of the standards generally for a special permit.
And that would just, detrimental to the neighborhood doesn't necessarily have to be aesthetically detrimental. It could be just detrimental to one specific property holder.
Well, I mean, the variance is a very, very, strict standard too. So it's,
Understood.
it takes into account, I mean, the standards do take into account neighbors and the effect on the neighborhood.
This is both a variance and a special permit, right? They have to go in sequence of, you have to obtain a variance and then a special permit. Am I correct?
Setback is the variance, and I believe and there's also a variance being sought from the special permit provision, in the sense that it would not be either part of the existing dwelling or.
Gotcha.
So there is, yes, both the variances and a special permit being sought. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure if it's, I'm actually fairly sure it's a variance. There has to be very specific hardships in order for a town to grant the variance, is that right? In which hardship does this one fall under?
We haven't done that analysis yet. That's really a question.
Which of the hardships?
Well, there's an existing structure there with heated living space that anyone can use now and view your property from the existing skylights. They aren't living there. It's intermittent use. Someone could live there.
So someone lives there.
Heated living space, yes. And so I hardly believe that it's detrimental to your property. I'm designing these types of buildings
So then you're
on a
familiar with the
regular
hardships.
basis. No, there's no hardship to you.
But
I
in
have
order to
not
get a
seen
variance,
any.
you guys have to show hardship, right?
Well, we have an existing building, and we'd like to use the space that's there.
But you can use the space that's there. People just can't live there.
But we're requesting that Carly's parents and a third generation use the space so that they can care for their grandchildren.
Okay, so if there's no hardship necessary, why do you need a special permit and a variance?
We're trying to use the space that's there. It seems a hardship to knock down a perfectly good building that has heated living space. That's the only way we could do this, is to build a new structure attached to the house instead of using a perfectly feasible structure that has heated living space.
Gotcha. And there's no way you could do it in the house itself?
There's just no space.
Basement or otherwise?
No. They have 2 young children, they're 2 working parents, there's no space inside the house.
Okay.
And these are smaller windows than the existing skylights that overlook your property.
I know. But really what it comes down to is if people were living there, I wouldn't have bought it. I spoke to my wife about it. I wanted to say yes, but that's the truth of the matter. I wouldn't have bought the house.
Well, we do have 2 neighbors who did approve the project
Neither
that we
of them
have
abut.
provided.
Not even a but.
I just don't see how it is affecting you negatively. It's already there.
That's up to
There wouldn't
me.
have been people living there when you moved in. You wouldn't have known if they're there 1 week out of every 3 months.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's not a 1 week per 3 month permit. It's a 4-year permit.
I don't think it's up to anyone else to determine whether he thinks it's a detriment to his own. That's a decision that any property owner has to make for him or herself, I think is all I would say.
Thank you. No, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just,
standard.
yeah, me too. I'm doing the same. Yeah, go ahead.
And so I was
It's all right.
sidetracked. Okay, so, Mr. Storello, did you have any other questions?
No, that's it.
Okay. Is there anyone here, and I have to ask the question, who would like to speak in support of the application? No one? Is there anyone here who would like to speak in opposition to the application? I mean, is there anything that you would like to say that you haven't already?
No, it's just, it's really close to us, and from talking to people in really our situation, we believe it could have a negative impact, both for resale, home value, and, day-to-day living.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicants like to respond to
I don't know if you have
comments?
any response or your attempts to speak to them.
I mean, I don't have much more to add. I don't want to impact anyone negatively. I don't think it would be detrimental to the neighborhood. I think that we have really tried everything we can to make it work. The building is super close to their property already, which was already approved in 2001 before we lived there. And there's not anything we can do about that at this point. And, this is our forever home, so we just want to make it as comfortable for us as we possibly can.
All right. Thank you. I think there's no more evidence to be taken. So I think we will close the evidence part of the hearing and go into deliberations. Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Quijano, would you like to give us your thoughts?
Are you looking at the standard of things?
I was looking up the requirements for the special permit for the in-law apartment.
Okay.
Under section, whatever it is.
389.
3A9. So no, not the standard for the variance. I'm not playing with that yet.
I think that the new plans have addressed a lot of the issues that were brought up at the first hearing, and specifically the enclosures of the staircases, eliminating one of the staircases, making the windows much smaller, as I understand it, by now restructuring it to be not a one-bedroom, but a studio-type use, which allowed them to reduce the windows even significantly more than they were going to be, and significantly smaller, as I understand it, from the skylights that are already there. The only real concern I'm still having is the fact that it's not, we're doing a variance from the fact that it's not attached to a structure. So, and do we have enough to be able to make that kind of variation from those strict guidelines that you're looking up right now?
Right, well, now I'm looking up 40A for 1 second, just to
Okay.
see if we can find that. Just to see if there's anything in the thank you very much. I am. Maybe that's what I'm looking for. Well, before I get to this, right, let me go back to the requirements of the section. In order to grant, I mean, okay, the distance from the property line
Right.
was already, as far as the building was concerned, was already sort of approved in a prior variance.
Right.
Right? So that's fine. It is extremely close to the back line. And the use of the property as it was originally in the variance that was granted before versus what's being sought now is different.
Right.
So I think that change is significant. Okay. The second thing I would note is that the section to grant the special permit for the in-law apartment is fairly strict. And Section 9 of subsection starts off with, well, it says, the Board of Appeals shall not issue a special permit for a detached one-family dwelling with a temporary apartment except upon the following conditions, which shall be in writing and part of the special permit, right? not issue unless all of the conditions are met. And F, which is the one in question, among other things, states, temporary apartment shall be entirely contained within the existing dwelling or on the second floor of an attached garage. All right, so given the fact the town meeting was extremely explicit in exactly what it wanted for in-law apartments, saying that we shall not issue a special permit unless each of these requirements is met, I think maybe, to my thinking, the standard for granting a variance from one of those has got to be remarkably high. So now I'm curious as to what specific language we have in our variance granting authority to see if our burden of proof is getting there or not. Sorry to be doing this all out of the front.
It's the
Standard thing that we've
standard
had,
for
what we've had for any other one, right?
Right.
Public hearing and notice, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so in order to grant a variance to anything, we have to say that owing to circumstances relating to the soil conditions, the shape or topography of the land or structures, and especially affecting such land or structures, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it is located, a literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance or bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner or appellant, and that desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially degrading from the intent or purpose of such ordinance or bylaw. All right? So, in order to grant the variance for the building being, the apartment being separate, we have to find, in my reading of the statute on the fly, something about the soil condition, shape, or topography of land, of such land or the structure or structures, and especially affecting such land or structures, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it is located, such that it would provide a hardship. Now, hardship could be financial,
Right.
right? And obviously,
I think we have
knocking
that.
down the building and moving it to some other place is a financial hardship.
Correct.
Okay. Is the knocking down of that building, is it related to the shape of the lot in some way?
Well, arguably, the existing structure
Can we hang
that,
ourselves on that?
well, I think that there's already been this variance that made it so close, and that is what's causing the difficulty here, right? Is the closeness of the
Yeah.
proximity.
Okay.
So that would be in line with the lot of the land, making it unique so that it causes this exact issue.
You're looking at me.
I'm curious what you think.
This is a tough one.
yeah.
The language is very, very strict in the variance provision. And it has to be circumstances relating to soil conditions, which is not here, shape, it's not here, or topography of such land or structures, and especially affecting such land or structures. To be honest with you, I don't know that I see a condition here that falls within that
I know.
as I read that language.
Right.
It is, it's true that it was put within 6.5 feet of the line. I'm not sure what the setback was at that time, but the setback for this particular use is 30 feet. And it wasn't allowed at 6.5 feet away from the property line to be occupied as an apartment.
Correct.
It was a garage with a gym above it. I don't know whether it had a gym.
And is that specific in that variance, that was the use that it was?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Well, I don't think it would have been for an in-law apartment if it was.
Well, yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Couldn't have been.
no.
But not for dwelling, certainly. Because it's heated space, you seem to suggest that they can currently use it, the family that's living there can currently use it for any purpose right now, is what your argument is,
But
right?
not for an in-law apartment.
not legally per the variance or the bylaws.
Right.
Does the, sorry to go back to this again, does the existing space as it's currently constituted have kitchen facilities in it? No. So it would be difficult for anyone to live there as in a separate unit because there's no, I mean, it's heated in that it can be occupied, but no one's living there. Yeah, there's no one living, yeah.
There's not a bathroom. Anyone can put a microwave or fridge, but there's no bathroom.
Right, okay.
Okay.
All right. That clarifies it a little.
Trying to think of.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't doubt that this it seems like a good idea and a good, I mean, I like the plan in the sense that I think it's attractive. I think it fits in with the neighborhood. I don't think there's, from that point of view, not living very far from here myself, I don't think it's a particular, I think it's been well thought out. My main concerns are that it's 6.5 feet from the rear lot line and that we're being asked to make a variance to a very strict requirement for the granting of an in-law apartment in a building that is not attached to the structure.
And that there's a neighbor.
And precisely, yeah. The neighbor that's most closely affected by the proposed.
Has an
Right.
objection.
So I think it's hard for us to make a finding that there's that there's no detrimental effect to the neighborhood if the testimony that we have from the neighbor who's most directly abutting the property is that he believes it to be detrimental to his usage of the building. It's not unreasonable to assume that, given how close it is and the fact that instead of using it as gym space, there would be someone actually living there, at least intermittently. But intermittently is what's being contemplated. But if we grant the special permit, it could be permanent. We're subject to renewal.
Right.
So I'm looking for a way to get to yes on it, because in one sense, I like it, and I don't doubt that it would be extremely useful for the family, but I'm finding it difficult to find a way within our authority, I think, to grant it on these facts. But I'm not, I'm willing to be swayed. I'm just sort of throwing that out there to discuss with you guys. Convince me otherwise. I mean, please.
I have the same.
I'm trying to be.
misgivings
Yeah, I mean,
that you do too, and we have a neighbor here who, is in good faith, arguing that he's been told it would devalue his property and that he has privacy concerns about it.
I'm trying to be as creative and thinking outside of the box as I can, because I am, I did like the argument as to the housing production plan and having to constantly amend that and to meet the needs of our population. But I can't find where there would be a way to get around, especially with the abutter and the privacy issues.
Sorry about that.
Let's see.
It's okay.
I'd have to agree with my.
Well, are we ready to take our vote? Anybody else have any?
Well, I was just going to make one last glance through the language of section 10 variances to see if I get any additional ideas hanging on here. Because I'd like to, survive an appeal. Yeah.
Did you want to look at Which one, the variance? That's section 10.
Section 10. I don't see anything that we can definitively.
Okay. I think we're ready to take a vote. We've had a discussion about it. All those in favor of granting the relief requested, being the variances that were requested under 6D2 and under a variance from the provision of the special permit bylaw, and granting a special permit for the in-law apartment, say aye. All those opposed?
No. Regrettably.
I'm sorry, but that's
Thank you for your time. I just have one.
hamstrung by the,
I just have one question. If we do choose to knock that down and build an attached garage with an in-law suite, does that still require a special permit, or is that by right?
no, you still have to have a special
That's what I
permit
thought.
for an in-law.
Yeah.
Right, but you wouldn't need the variance.
So if
from
we
that.
clear the variance issues with an attached structure, and if it were a two-car garage with an in-law suite above, then
And
we
met
would
the
only-
setback
Met the
requirements?
setbacks, which it would attached. And then we just come for a special permit.
Yeah, the special permit under 3A9 with all of the
With
requirements.
all the requirements laid out. And ideally, assent of all the neighbors would help a great deal, as it always does.
Yes,
All right, thank you.
thank you. Other hearings tonight, right?
We're going to adjourn?
Oh, adjourn this hearing, yes. There aren't any other hearings, is that right? So we'll adjourn the meeting as well.